Okay. Hello, welcome to another episode of the GNPS with General Lunjiniela. And I'm bringing you another dope episode. Sitting next to me is my next guest, the one and only, Mr. Mpendulo.
So, how you doing?
You good, bro?
I'm good.
For people that don't know, Mpendulo is a podcaster. That's how I know him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he can tell you what else he does if there's anything that he's doing with his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a podcast called Good Morning Bro, and a news website that I started in 2015, I think. It's a while back. It started off as a blog, and now we've got a couple of writers. We write articles, obviously, from a young person's perspective. We're trying to. So that's what I'm busy with. And professionally, I'm a wealth manager. So, yeah, I've got the day-to-day job, but my passions are just having conversations like this.
Yeah.
I really like it. It's fun. It's fun.
Your podcast, bro, which is called Morning Bro. What motivated you to?
Okay, so me and my brother would have
launch that platform.
Yeah, I've got how many siblings? I'm forgetting my siblings now. I've got like 3 brothers and then one older sister, so it's 5 of us. And my older brother studied theology. He passed it as a diploma in theology. So him and I would have like I'm gonna be honest, pretty offensive conversations about religion. And he always gave me
challenging.
Yeah, like I'd say some horrible, like being a religious person myself, but I'd say some horrible things to other people, and he wouldn't hold me back from being honest about my perspective, and he'd help me out wherever you could, and then he'd learn from me, I'd learn from him, and we'd talk about other things, relationship, like laws, government, philosophy, all that stuff. We'd just go really into it, and the more I'd have these conversations with him, the more he kind of pushed, and also people in my life pushed for me to get into a platform. It's the only thing that I've ever started with everyone screaming at me to do it. Like, just do it. I was like, okay, I'll do it, damn. So I got into it because of that. And I called it Good Morning Bro because initially when I tried to address everyone, because I knew that there would be an audience, I started it off as like, okay, cool, I'm going to have a conversation with everyone that's listening. And I got scared. Like, I started thinking about all the different people who could be hearing this conversation that might take what I'm saying the wrong way, or maybe look at an inflection and think it means something that it doesn't. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to direct my conversation to my brother.
Yeah.
So when I say Good Morning Bro, it's Monday. I'm recording the podcast as though I am having a conversation with my older brother. Because then it's easy for me to say whatever I'm thinking without having to think about all the listeners. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I named it what I named it. That's why I got into it. And I've been doing it for quite some time, but I'm bad at being consistent.
Consistent, man. Sometimes consistency doesn't mean like every day.
Yeah.
Different pace for different tasks.
Yeah.
I like to think of it that way.
That's true.
Because even with us, even with the shooting and recording, we may not be as consistent as we'd like, but like as long as we know that we still have the energy and the will to shoot and put out another episode.
Yeah, that's true. I think what kills me is I have severe ADHD, and I have this like I don't know how to explain it. My mind gets bored of what I'm doing quite quickly, so I'll find something I'm passionate about, get into it, and be like, I've been doing this for like 3 days and I'm done.
Shit,
and then immediately want to do something else. Like I'm obviously getting better at it now. So I'll do Good Morning Bro, and I'd get into the topic, I'd get into it, and then I'd do another one. And then after the third one, I'm like, I don't know, man, something about what I'm doing doesn't feel right. I'll start to judge myself harshly. And I'm doing it just because I know I want to do something different, but I'm making it seem like it's self-criticism. Like I'm making it seem like it's constructive when it's not. It's not constructive at all. So like I know myself enough now to know when I'm manipulating myself. So I'd manipulate myself into thinking I need to change things up when it's just my boredom.
Yeah.
And so that's what killed off my consistency, is I'd want to add this in there, I'd want to do that and put new people in, give it a different spin, have segments that don't need to be there in it. And so it ends up evolving and being this other thing when it could be better off being what it was at the beginning. And yeah, I'm just struggling. I still struggle. Man. It's a lifelong journey.
I mean, but from a listener's perspective, I'd say you're pretty much doing what you need to do.
Thanks, man.
Because the content is still relevant and it's still well delivered.
Yeah.
and I guess we can see your perspective,
Yeah, yeah.
and which is what you're trying to express.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, I just feel like you too much of a of your own like you criticize yourself way too much than you should. I see that because I do that with myself as well. Like every episode, like I just in my head, like I have points. I was telling him that I have things that I'll put an X on, like an asterisk. Like, I did not do that well. I need to change that. Like for one thing, Tiny normally tells me like I cut people way too much.
Oh, you cut them off?
Yeah, like
I don't see that
like,
at all.
Like I come in a lot. So
okay.
At the back of my mind, like I'm constantly challenging that, like
To keep let the guy finish off his statement.
like yeah,
I don't think I agree with that.
try and give people more time.
Yeah, yeah.
But in any case, I feel like those things they help sort of drive this whole thing where I would like it to go.
It's gonna get harder for you, by the way, in my opinion,
true.
because what happens is when you have enough conversations, you start to know where people are going before they get there. And you want to go, yeah, okay, let me just give you my opinion. Because I've heard this version of this thing you're going to say. Yeah. So the more you do podcasting or the more you get into conversations about anything, the more you start to recognize certain points that you've heard before. Like they're always packaged the same. Because what human beings are very bad at understanding is that human beings don't have ideas. Ideas have human beings. Like we don't get to decide what we think. It's already been, like there's certain ideologies that already exist on the planet. And we kind of latch onto them. Yeah. But because we're human and we think we're amazing, we make that opinion a part of our identity. So you'll talk to someone and you'll start to notice that, okay, I think I've heard this version of this opinion before. But to them, it feels new. It feels powerful. It feels unique. And when you have enough conversations, you have to keep yourself back from just interjecting and going, no, but... You know, so it's gonna look. Good luck, because I'm bad at it quite a lot. I can be honest and say that's one of the things that I am the worst at is letting people finish. Yeah. And I get so mad, and I'm like, I'm gonna let you finish, but I swear to God, if what you're gonna say is what I thought you're gonna say, we're gonna have a problem. Yeah. And then when they say what I was like, I knew it. I knew I should have interrupted you. I'm never gonna just speak again. So there's that like issue that I also deal with from time to time with having had enough discussions about quite a few topics from here to there where it gets hard when you're trying to talk to people professionally to let them finish their piece. Yeah. Because you just don't want to hear it all the time.
You know what I always say, like if somebody's here and they have what they want to say and they know what they want to say. Hey, I could just hang back. Like I was telling you in the lift. It's like I can chill and just listen, because that's one thing like that I know that I can be good at is just listening, just paying attention and hear what you're trying to say. Even though I might get lost in between, but like my aim will be at listening, because one thing I've realized with podcasting, like you're saying, it's easy to crash. So listening is very important.
It is. And also there's someone I admire, a couple of people I admire, but one of the people I admire most is Jon Stewart. Guy had the Daily Show before Trevor Noah. I don't really idolize people often, but I damn near idolize that guy. And he's been on the rounds again because he has a new movie out. I'm not here to plug his movie, so I'm not going to say what it is. No one's paying me.
Okay, so I guess you watched him on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, of course. I was so excited. I was entirely too excited. I thought I was getting money the way I was so happy to watch them talk. But he spoke about the fact that even when you're doing things like podcasting or whatever, there's this thing that comes in you, this evisceration mentality. If you're going to be speaking to someone that has an opposing opinion, because you know there's an audience, you almost like want to play up the theater of it and want to be like confrontational to a point that isn't necessary and wouldn't be prevalent if it was just you two talking in a room. So that also was a problem for me. I had to like teach myself to just go, listen, I need to have my conversation as though no one else is in the room. Because if I start noticing like the lights and the cameras and stuff, I'll start listening to them less and think of how I can better my argument and get over what they're saying more. So I'm just picking up stompies, right? I'm nitpicking. They say 5 things and I go, I can work with that. And I grab onto that and then deviate the conversation. Next thing, a debate about, I don't know, taxes ends up being a discussion about, I don't know, like tickets on the road.
Yeah.
And it's my fault that it got there because I kept latching onto little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to win the conversation more than have a conversation, that I just completely derailed the podcast. So I've had to also, in moments like that, also just go, listen, but not because you're just trying to be a gracious host. Because again, it's not my strength to just sit back and go, I hear you.
Yeah.
But listen so that when you respond, it's a response that is directed to the statement that's been made. Don't fall into what they call a straw man fallacy.
Yeah.
This happens to me all the time. A prime example, you'll be having a conversation with someone and you'll say, yo, man, it's crazy. I think we need to make it so that people who are over 21 don't drink, for example. And they go, people are always crashing. And you go,
Yeah.
I didn't say let's ban cars. That is a response to a debate on whether or not we should have cars or not. I'm speaking specifically to the 21-year-olds, right? But it seems as though they're answering you, but they're not. They're putting up this other straw man.
It's like we're shifting the goalpost now.
Yes. That's why they call it a straw man. They're creating a straw man and shooting at that straw man, but the straw man's wearing your clothes. He's got your cap. He's got all your clothing. So it sounds like this person is directly answering your question, but they're not. They've gone somewhere completely different.
True.
So I did that quite a lot. And I got called out by my dad. He's an intelligent guy. He calls me out constantly. I used to say stuff like, I used to say a lot of crazy stuff. He'd call me out. And then I just thought, okay, let me just get good at, getting rid of some of these fallacies that go into having conversations and debates and discussions. And
What are some of those strange stuff?
another one is it's an ad hominem, which again we all use it. Like I don't want to bring in Hitler too early in the podcast, but why not?
Hey,
That's like minute 55.
it's already in you.
Right? That's like later on in the podcast. But if Hitler rocked up and says we should all respect animals, we shouldn't kill cats, people are quick to go, you are hearing that from you. And that's an ad hominem, where they make the person delivering the argument more important than the argument being delivered. Like they want to remove the legitimacy of the discussion and make it about the person having the discussion. And usually when that happens, it's because you've got no other way to go. You've lost the discussion. You don't know what to do.
You've seen that I've got no points.
In football, it's called a foul when you play the man, not the ball.
True.
But in discussions, it's just what people tend to do. They want to play the ball when they know, I can't get the ball from this guy. I need a slide tackle. Give me slab, So there's things like that. There's ad hominems and other different fallacies. I can't really remember all of them now, but you have to constantly make sure that you aren't doing them, and that if someone does them to you, you call them out and go, listen, we want to have a discussion. Right now, I know what you're doing. Discuss my point. Discuss me. Discuss what I'm saying to you and whether or not it's valid and not where it's coming from. And so that's how I have my discussion. So it's just keeping up with the stuff, man. It's a lot.
Such beautiful lessons, and I'm hearing that you mentioned your father. For me, that's a big deal, because whenever men do good, I'd like to focus on that. And this just brings my next question. Growing up, how was life for you, as at home? Specifically.
I mean, look, nostalgia might play a role in the answer I give, but it was great. I mean, at the time I was young, so I didn't know anything. I was a teenager, and I didn't know anything, and I thought I did, which is always worse. And then in my 20s, which is also kind of where I am now, I'm learning to understand what my life was. But if I had to give a quick answer, it was great. Like my father and my mother were very tough, as parents would be. There's someone that said, when you're the first child or the first one that the parents are dealing with, the parents are learning how to be parents also. Like, bafunda ngao. And so it's kind of hard when you got in trouble for doing that one thing, and then your little brother gets away with it, and you go, man, we're not doing that. So, but there was a lot of that, but that comes with the territory of not knowing how to, police this life that you're in charge of. But man, it was great. My father's a superhero. My mom is a superhero too. Both, they have completely different ways of seeing the world, and that's what makes their marriage work so well. My mom was an entrepreneur. My dad is more of like a analytic guy. He looks at the numbers and the stats and then makes a decision based on, what he sees. My mom makes a decision based on what she feels. And so being in a house like that, from time to time, it gets a bit, there are issues. Yeah. You ask one parent for one thing, and instead of them discussing it, they use you as a proxy. Like, you go tell her. It doesn't happen a lot. So there'd be a bit of you'd be confused as a kid as to okay, so what am I supposed to do exactly? Yeah. Because they were quite different in how they saw things, but it was a really good childhood. Got quite a lot of support. A lot of motherly love from moms, as moms tend to give. A lot of you're doing well, but be better from your dad, which is important. I always say sometimes the worst thing a dad can be to a son is proud out loud. It's like, boys, sometimes we don't need our dads to be like actively proud of us. I know it's good, and there's some good in it, but your dad saying to you, you're on the right track, does way more for you than, oh man, you're killing it. Because sometimes you like take the foot off the gas.
You relax.
And you relax. So my dad had a really healthy balance of knowing when to motivate me, by letting me know I need to do more, and then also congratulating me once I've done the bit that I thought I couldn't do well. So yeah, it's a great childhood. I'm lucky I had brothers too.
Yeah.
Like 90% of why my childhood is dope is because I've got siblings.
Yeah.
And we laugh at each other, we roast each other. It's horrible at home. No one respects you. There's no respect in that house.
You gotta earn your stripes.
Yeah, no, and even when you do, they can be taken away. That's the worst part about it. You can't make any mistakes. You can't stutter. Like Tiny knows my brother, my younger brother. He might, but I'm not sure if he does. But just a small mistake, like what I just did now, they'd be on me. Like this little stutter that I just did now. I'd go and they go and it's like, oh come on, man. For like half an hour, dude. Like it's real. Like it's real. Yo. And then next time you want to bring up a point now, you can't even speak properly. So it's just this that. Obviously, it's all in good fun, and we all enjoy doing it to each other. But having my brothers makes dealing with the crazier parts of being a young person easy. So yeah, my childhood was great, man, and growing up, it's been good, and things are still good now, and it's all thanks to my parents.
Wow.
It's all thanks to my parents.
And let's go back to your news channel because you brought that up.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah.
Just give us what kind of news you're covering and why go for that.
Yeah, it's called OK Media.
Yeah.
It's changed its name quite a bit. It was first, the blog was first called Verisimilitude, which at least from my understanding is a phrase or concept that is taken as truth but can be challenged. So that's my perspective has always been, I'll write on what I know to be true, but I'm really looking forward to someone adding to this experience or adding to my perspective. So I used to write articles about anything, right? I wrote about like how constant the fear of death is, things like that. And then it evolved to being a blog where I would comment on things. Started getting into more commentary, talking about sports, music, a bit of fashion, even though I don't know anything about fashion, and a lot of politics and a lot of philosophy.
Yeah,
that's where I would like kind of put my focus. And I started getting more and more people involved. But the thing is, and I'll be honest with you, when you want to get someone to take part in what you do, after the first 3 months, they go, man, I could do this too.
Yeah.
So it was a constant revolving door of guys going in and guys coming and guys going out, in and out, in and out. And so now we're in a place where we're better off, I think, when it comes to the group of guys that I have. They're all around my age. And we just kind of, we write news, we write articles on what's happening in the world. We give a different perspective if it's necessary. Necessary is a very specific word that I'm using there. But if we think that there's something happening around the world that people don't know about, we just go, hey guys, this is also what's happening. Maybe pay attention to this while you're paying attention to that. So it's, again, still on music. My co-founder, he's big on music. He's a musician. We write about politics, opinion, pieces, and then sports. For now, it's just the four. And we write articles constantly about whatever's happening around the world. And it's interesting. And it's good because we have we have a WhatsApp group where we just discuss what's happening around the world on Wednesdays and on Fridays.
Oh, okay.
So there's quite a lot of learning that happens in that WhatsApp group and in those interactions. And so we're trying to educate ourselves, write articles about what we know to be true, educate others, and then have others hopefully add onto our own experience. So that's kind of what the site does now. okmedia.co.za.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Bro. Like, you know how important that is? Like, do you understand how important it is for people to take up a task such as the task that you've taken upon yourself to provide a news platform that's reliable?
Yeah.
Especially in these times, because every now and again there's fake news just flying around. Even in mainstream media.
Yeah. It's disappointing when you see it in mainstream. And it kind of makes you realize that John, not to mention Jon Stewart again, he hates mainstream. And he's taught me to hate mainstream because he has a quote where he goes, the 24-hour news cycle is created for tragedies like 9/11. What does that news cycle then do once the tragedy is over? They heighten everything else at the same level as though it would be a 9/11. They need to make everything else seem as though it is that important. So they sensationalize the news in order to sell the news. They don't play ads in between news because they just want you to know about the latest BMW. That's how they make revenue, right? Is how they make revenue. And if you're telling everyone that everything is fine and things are getting better, we don't need to be watching the news for that. We want to kind of be scared off into thinking that things are worse than they were before and whatever the case might be, because that's just how human beings are wired. So trying to be reliable, and I mean really push to be reliable and call out fake news when you can. I try to start a category called fake news. It's the most important thing in the world to me.
So you guys have a category where people can go and see you.
We're building it now. It was just more me venting. I just go off about fake. Like I know the 5G thing is kind of died out now, but that was a bit upsetting because I don't know if you know, I'm sure you do, about what happened in Chernobyl in Soviet in Russia. There was a nuclear explosion at one of the plants there. And
right now, like
no, it's a while back. We're good. We're good. We're good. But a bunch of people died. Not a lot of people died, and they had to like basically evacuate a large section of Russia that had been hit with this nuclear reactor. That
you mean in Siberia?
No, not the Siberian one, in Chernobyl, Russia, okay. Chernobyl, back in the day. And that influenced me to read up more about just how radiation works. So the way I usually do work when I'm researching is, if someone gives me a piece of information, I want to research what that thing is about first before I take on whether or not the information lines up with facts. So what I did was, I looked at radiation and thought, okay, so how does radiation work? What are the different levels of radiation? I just thought all the way back to like your microwaves and end up with your gamma rays, your gamma radiation. I had to learn about things like that before I could give an opinion on 5G. I can't be going on about how 5G is dangerous, but I don't even know all the different categories of radiation. If I had to ask you what is ionizing radiation, and you go, I don't know. At what point does radiation become ionizing? I don't know, but I'm sure this 5G is killing us. It's like, come on, man, you can't just write the answer.
Not only that, but like 5G, like, okay, what network system are we using now? Do you know about that? What effects does it have on us?
Exactly.
Health-wise.
And here's the worst part about it is, if radiation is going to kill you, you're going to get cancer. You're not going to get a flu. Like, that's what happens when people get hit with like excessive radiation or are exposed to radiation for long enough. They get things like leukemia, they get cancer, they get like their cells break down. They don't get flu-like symptoms. So when this thing that gives you flu-like symptoms was being called this thing that gives you cancer, it's like, just talk to someone else about this, maybe? And then you'll start to understand that they have a different perspective based on their degrees than you based on your feelings. And that might do you some good later on to just think like that way from now on. And so I tried to do that, at least for those who would read the articles on OK Media, those who listen to the podcast, but just even with my family in general. We're a very tight-knit family. We don't like letting fake news get in, but when it does get in, we're quick to squish it. Nah, fam.
What other fake news are there out there right now?
Ooh, okay, I need
Let's call them out.
Let's call some fake news out. Okay, so there's a bit of a misunderstanding. It's not so much fake news. COVID is a big one. The whole mask situation. There's this whole thing of whether or not wearing a mask is good for you, if it's bad for you, and all that stuff. And there are those who go, don't wear a mask. It doesn't do anything to protect you, the person who's wearing the mask. It's to protect other people just in case you have COVID. And that's true, but what people don't talk about is that it does minimize the rate in which you could spread the infection. And we're trying to minimize spreading the infection. So there's a lot of fake news there. And in America, and I'm hoping not in this country, they've used wearing a mask as like a political tool. If you're like a Trump person, you don't wear a mask because you don't want to be weak.
So
if you're a Biden person, exactly. If you're a Biden person, you care about safety and facts and science, you have to wear a mask. So they've divided the whole community on mask wearing at that level, and they've stuck their flags. They're like, this is how this is going to go. And you have a bunch of guys saying a bunch of stuff that isn't true, even to the point where like WHO and CDC could sometimes contribute to that like fake news sometimes. And these are the guys I'm trusting to give us information. But I mean, they fall into it sometimes. They're human just like how we're human. And I think the WHO said something along the lines of wearing a mask doesn't really help prevent it and so forth. But the reason why they were saying it was to Make sure that abantu abaningi don't go buying masks that doctors could be
so
using.
that then there's a shortage.
Exactly. But that's the same as someone going, we really need the material for cars that we use for seatbelts. How do we get people to use less seatbelts? And you go, you do know that if you get into a car accident and your car falls into the ocean and you have your seatbelt on, the likelihood of you drowning is high. I mean, yeah, that's true. But when am I going to drive my car into a lake? So they'll use the truth to get you to push the narrative within your own life and within the people around you to keep you from doing something. And then they'll use that to kind of push their own agenda, keep the masks that they want to keep, and then keep it moving. So there's a lot of, I'm more interested in fake news like that, like really, really subtle fake news that it takes a lot of time to break down, and not like the crazy stuff like the farm killings. Like we have a farm up in, we don't have that many farmers, first of all. And the numbers are half what they are. From the 2000s, I think it was 1,000 farmers were killed in 2005 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. Now it's like 500 a year. It's still bad, it's half. So there's the obvious insane fake news. That's like that. Like we have an epidemic of farmers being killed. That's the kind of fake news that I kind of ignore. I point it out and I laugh at people that really, really want to convince me that it's true, but it doesn't really affect me on the day-to-day as much as the really subtle fake news that can really, really, like inserts itself in someone's subconscious, and you start thinking as a person who sees things in the wrong way because someone needed to benefit from you seeing it that way. So that's the kind of other fake news that if I remember other stuff, I'll interject and stuff like, that one too. But there's a lot, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
How do you think, we see how technology is sort of like, weaving itself into our society, this side. For instance, let's look at Twitter. The whole cancel culture of Twitter has trickled down to this side. How do you feel about
cancel culture? Is a joke. Something like, it's such a joke. It's not even a funny one. It's a cling to power. That's what it is. Nothing makes you feel better than having someone who you can never be like, be exposed, destroyed, and dismantled because of you. There's power in destruction. People have to admit that about themselves. There isn't always power in building people up. There's a lot of power in breaking them down. To know that you can break them down, that's what cancel culture is. Now, obviously, there is a moment where it is important to get rid of some people. Not all great, right? We need to weave some people out of the way. But the Kevin Hart situation 2 years ago, bringing up someone's past tweets, as troublesome as they might have been, as if the society wasn't laughing alongside with him when he made those jokes, is embarrassing.
Let's bring it home. More local. I don't know if you've seen recently a certain Miss Kumbi.
I might have heard it,
they brought up her old tweets when she decided to enter for Miss SA.
Yes. Is that the young Afrikaans lady? She
was making black jokes.
She's 15. That's what we're doing. We're going after 15-year-olds for the decisions they made when they were. This person could not drive a car. They could not buy a cigarette. There's so many things that society deemed them unqualified to do. So to hold someone accountable for something that they did when society doesn't even hold them accountable yet is insane to me. What are you getting from looking at a 15-year-old, a child? Obviously, she did some really crazy things and she said some crazy stuff. But what do you get from trying to shame her out of a career that you could then use to push your narrative forward? I never understood why people were turning their attention to a child. I get that maybe the problem is we're dealing with so much racism that any racism, no matter how old, is gonna spark something in us, right? We just can't handle any of it. But the moment we start looking at children, and at 15 you're a kid, man, and going, you should have been better at being a kid. Come on, man. She's 15. If every single person in this room had to talk about the dumbest thing they did at 15, I don't know, maybe some of us go to prison. I'm not saying anything, but we all did extremely stupid things when we were 15 years old, and we stopped doing them, and we moved forward. The thing that I don't get is time is linear. That's all. The only thing we know about time for a fact is that you can't go back. It's designed to be linear. And when you're trying to evolve, you're only going to be able to evolve in the direction in which time pushes you in, which is the future. You can't be better than you were. You can only be better than you are. That's it. That's all you have. Going back to people and asking them to be better than they used to be and not looking at who they are now is like asking me to have a conversation about someone who doesn't exist anymore. That idiot isn't here anymore. The The person who made those jokes, they're not here anymore. They're not around anymore. They're not really here to defend themselves or have the same perspective. I'm here now. And I understand why that person was an issue. And I get why that person thought that they were being edgy in what they were saying. But they're not here anymore. So have a conversation with me about who I am and not who I was. Because I can only speak about the person that I am now, not the person that I used to be. That's just how I look at wanting to have an honest conversation with someone. But cancel culture is not about honesty, it's about power. It's about power. Each stupid tweet has an ecosystem linked to it. And you know how they talk about like market share? Each stupid tweet has like its own somewhat market share. And if each person can get a certain level of, or a certain number of retweets from that market share and build their own brand, build their own name up and get more follows and get more retweets and whatever the case might be, it benefits them to take part in cancel culture. So why wouldn't we think people to take part in cancel culture? The incentive to want to cancel people is there. If I make the right quote at the right time in the right way,
I say it the right way.
I could be popping, right?
Right figures, right letters.
No, how dope it must be to put something on Twitter and then see that posted on Facebook. Like, I made it to Facebook? How much you're transcending social media platforms? That's what that's about. And there's a lot of power behind that. So if it's legitimate, I have no problem with going after someone that said something about a year ago, right? About maybe, 2 years ago, if they haven't shown any progress, at least. But for the most part, I just think it's ridiculous. And specifically with the situation of this young girl, there's a better way of getting a young person to understand the harms of speaking in that way as opposed to screaming and throwing things at them. I don't know about you guys, but my teachers didn't throw stuff at me. That isn't how you teach people.
Hey, I think someone did.
Well, I mean, it wasn't. I actually did get something thrown at me. I'm not lying. I'm lying. I did get something thrown at me, but I deserved it. But like for the most part, my teachers didn't teach me by throwing things at me, right? They tried to teach me by having me understand, and then if I didn't understand, explain further. If you want to get rid of racism, you teach people that might have an inclination to be racist why that's an insane way to look at the world. And then you have an ally as opposed to an enemy. Screaming at someone ultimately makes them an enemy. And then how do we win a battle when we're not taking rid of any soldiers? You can't win a war when soldiers aren't being taken out. But you can win a war quite easily if some soldiers from this side move over to that side. So, yeah, cancel culture, it's
hey, cancel culture. Because every now and again, you so born like to hey, ban must fall.
And
I'm like,
it doesn't mean anything.
So figure out what are we going to achieve?
Yeah, there's nothing to achieve. It's just wanting to make yourself the most important person that day. Because social media, especially Twitter, is a self-censored platform where I remember actually trying to have a discussion. Someone said something. They made a joke. And people are going to hate this. I advocate for all jokes. I'm a big joke guy.
Jokes are important.
Even if you do not like the joke and it offends you, it's fine. Just then walk away, right? I have this thing where it's like, whenever I see someone take a joke seriously, it's like hearing someone laugh during a eulogy in a funeral. It's like, it's not the atmosphere for this place. Like going into a stand-up person's space, wanting to take it seriously. What are you doing here? That isn't the environment that this is set for. This is for hyperbole, right? Going too far for the sake of humor. Being satirical for the sake of humor. All this other crazy
offering
stuff.
a different perspective.
Exactly. So when you're going to be out here fighting guys that are dropping jokes 24/7, I have a big problem with that. So yeah, I when people want to make it more than just that, I get upset. So this guy wrote a thing about Wits getting bought. I think you might have seen it. There's a guy that wrote a tweet about
the football club.
Yeah. They bought Wits and it's like, the name has been changed to this and whatever. And he wrote a bunch of gibberish. Maybe a mean joke. I was laughing. I couldn't help it. It was like a silly joke. I've seen jokes about Zulus and Xhosas 24/7, 365. Right? So I understand it for what it is and not for what people want it to be in order for them to be famous. And I commented, so we're mad about this. Like, this is what we're choosing today to be mad at. And people are like, you don't understand, blah, 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 blah. I was like, no, I don't think I need to understand. I just need to know that it's a joke. And it's not really aimed at bringing harm to someone, as it's aimed at just pointing at someone and having a giggle at their expense, yes, but not really to push them down and hold them down, but just kind of, it's good to make fun of each other from time to time. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
And people on Twitter kind of went crazy. They were just trying to have these long debates about there's some things you can't joke about, which I do not believe. Yeah. There's some things you can't say, and And
what does
blah,
it
blah,
mean?
blah. Yeah. It's like we're all horrible people. So
Ukuhleka is part of life.
it's how you it's a coping mechanism.
Exactly.
You cannot make a coping mechanism in Tembe. If that's what the person needs to do in order for them to cope, find your way to cope and leave them the hell alone if they need to cope in that way. So they were going on about not every single person who makes jokes is doing it for the right reasons, blah blah blah, and so forth. And I realized I was like, oh, this isn't the platform for this kind of a conversation.
Exactly.
There's
Twitter is not a platform to talk about things.
How many characters?
150 something.
Yeah, 150 characters. Do you think maybe having that little characters might cause for some misunderstanding? Of course.
Obviously.
Of course.
Try writing your point in full. You'll see.
In 150 characters. You can't. So why would you go in there hoping to have people understand something that you might need, I don't know, an entire Facebook post to explain, right? So Twitter is not really designed for that kind of conversation. And it took me looking at how I should answer someone trying to have a conversation with me to go, no, this isn't going to work here, man.
Yeah. You know what I decided? I was like, on Twitter, I'm just an observer.
Yeah.
And I'll post whatever I'm posting, but I'm not posting looking for comments.
Yeah, that's true. You post and then you kind of walk
It's just
away.
like a dumping site. I just go put my stuff there.
Yeah,
then I see what's happening. Then I'm out.
That's how you should use Twitter, I think. There are people whose lives revolve around their Twitter platforms, and you're walking into their territory, and they'll defend that territory like anyone would defend their territory when they feel as though you're infringing on their freedom of expression or how they see things, and they will attack you as such. So when you're walking into Twitter trying to be casual, people aren't casual on there sometimes, all right? Then you are the one who's got the wrong perspective of what's going to happen and what the conversation is about. So if you're going to be a casual person, just post and walk away.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to do now more and more. I don't even like
I stay away from comments.
Yeah, man, comments. Can I be honest with you? I kind of like them. Like something about having someone say something horrible about me, if it's said the right way, it makes me laugh a little bit. Like it's not okay, it's not wrong. Like I'm quick to like,
You're
okay,
right.
he's calling me out, that's fine. But I think when I start to have an issue is when the person commenting is trying to make their comment mean more than it actually means. Like they'll try to put on a perspective, again, an ad hominem or a straw man that isn't being discussed. And Twitter is a landmine of that. Like getting mad at the guy for joking means you weren't really paying attention to the context in which he was having the discussion, right? That's already
you were just waiting for something.
Yeah, something happens.
To
like,
latch on.
Here we go, let's get these follows up. And then you go off at it. So I'm not big on Twitter like that, and yeah, it's a crazy platform for crazy people, me being included.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's get into. I don't know much about wealth management, so I might have a vague idea from movies or series. Why wealth management? And what is wealth management?
My family,
yeah. Some of the things is
go over our heads sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
By design, by the way. Sometimes they go over our head because the people who designed these structures put it just above us, just above our heads, so that it could switch through. Wealth management is just how do I explain this? It's my job is ultimately to look at people's situations. Look at their financing, look at whether or not they have what it takes to, retire on time, if they have the money to do what they want to do, pay for the house that they want to pay for, if they've got their insurances in line, and make sure that they've got the best situation for them. It's like tailor-making a financial situation for a person. And it's very important, but it's very difficult with our people, I will say that, because, and I'm noticing this depending on the economic status of the person you're speaking to, the less the person has, the more they're willing to tell you about how you should do your job. The more they have, the more afraid they are to lose it, and the more willing they are to listen. So those who have a lot go, hey man, I've got a lot here, man, just figure something out. And those with the little have to feel as though they're in control completely of the little they have. So they go, nah, bro, I don't know about all that. So there's that dynamic of it specifically with our people. But it's just trying to get people to understand that there are better ways to do what you want to do and have what you want to have. Prime example, obviously I can't give names, but I'm working with a client and he's looking to get, I'm going to say the amount, around 250 million by the time they are 60 years old. And they have an option, either put away 14,000 Rand every single month until they turn 60, or invest 3,000 Rand. Which is the better option of the two? to invest in 3,000
3,000
rand.
rand.
You still have
It's much
11,000 rand
cheaper.
to play around with, and
Yeah.
you're going to get to the same goal at the same time. That's basically what the job is. It's going. There are other ways to get to what it is that you want to get to, as opposed to putting your money in your bank account, which, by the way, it's depleting in its value every single year because of inflation. So that 100K isn't 100K anymore. It's 100K minus 3%, right? If you just leave it in your bank account, let's put it in a place where it's at least reaching inflation or going over the rate of inflation, and you're actually seeing real growth in your money. So that's kind of what you want to get people to understand. Some guys need to have a budget. You sit down with them and go, okay, cool, let's look at your expenses, at your entertainment, at the things that you want to spend money on, as opposed to the things you shouldn't be spending money on. And you help them understand themselves quite a bit financially so that they're comfortable and their money is their money.
Okay, let's do some just a rough idea. Let's go. I give an example. I'm a young 25-year-old, recently got employed. I earn around about 200. I earn over 250 per annum.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously I'm renting
Mm-hmm.
because I just started out.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I'm financing my car via the bank. What else? I don't have a child, hopefully. And yeah, at home they fine.
Yeah.
I don't need
They
to.
don't need me. Yeah, they don't need you to step up and handle them.
What advice would you give me from a perspective of wealth management?
Okay, first question is where are you going? 25 years old, you don't have a house, you have a car that you're paying, obviously you're using your credits to paying it off. What's the plan? Where are you going? Where are we going and how do we get there?
Okay, so the plan determines
Yeah, the advice.
The advice.
Yeah, it's on where we're going. You might be 25 now, but you won't be. Like a year from now already, you won't be.
Okay.
That's how years work.
I'm 25. I would say to you, I'd like to retire at 50.
Okay.
Have my own home,
Mm-hmm.
which is fully paid up. I'm not paying for. And have a car to move around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully be married by then, have 2 kids.
First question is, you're hoping to have 2 kids, get married, and only have 1 car?
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying? Yeah, cool.
we're just keeping it basic.
Yeah,
Just
but I'm saying already that's where you want to look at the
so
person.
that people can sort of have an idea. And
Yeah.
from the example, you
Yeah.
can sort of extrapolate a few things and see.
Yeah. So the first thing then I'd say to the person is, okay, you want to have your own home.
Mm.
Do you have an idea of where you'd want to have this home? Where you'd want to
Obviously, I want to be in a good neighborhood
Sure.
where my kids can possibly walk to school.
Mm-hmm.
Say we pick a neighborhood like where we are now,
Mm-hmm.
Glenwood.
Yeah. Well, then, and this is not exactly the main part of the work, is we'd look at what that's going to look like for you.
Mm.
What is going to look like for you to be able to afford that house, and at what age you want to afford it. So if you want to afford it at 30, and it's going to cost you a couple M to have that home, if you want to buy it cash, you're going to have a couple of hundreds of thousands if you want to put down a deposit. We're going to go with the money you have now, that you're earning right now. How do we get to that goal? Do we need to put the money away? Do we need to tell you, save half your salary, and then you can get what you want to get to? Or are we saying to you, no, let's take a little bit of the cash that you're making now, put it into an investment that's going to last for as long as what you're getting or what you want to do. And then when we get there, look back at the investment, hopefully, and most of the time they do yield the results you wanted, and then use that money to fund your home. So it's almost like we're here, we're trying to get to this place. There are different mechanisms in which we can move from here and go to there. Let's figure out what they are, but based on what it is that you want to do. So again, you want to have a home, you want to have a wife and kids. I can't help you with the wife and kids. You don't have a file of just
I'm
names.
fine in that. I'm fine.
But for the most part, the expenses that come with having a child, I think it's now R1 million to on just paying for a child from when they're born to 18 years old. You spend about $1 million. That's what it is now. We look at, okay, do we have a plan for what it's going to look like for you to earn the kind of money you would need to have a wife and kids and to be financially viable with your house that you can obviously be paying off to the time you hit 50. And what is it going to look like when you're 50? What's the plan? Are you going to be just sitting and just enjoying yourself? How much are you going to need every single month? Just sit and enjoy yourself. Food isn't free. You don't get fed for no reason when you're 50 years old.
Yeah.
Do you want to look after yourself? Do you want to be a pensioner? What does it look like for you to go from 25 to married with kids, and then from married with kids to retired and my kids out of the home? And we have a plan for both of them. This is how we get you to being married with kids. And here's how we get you to the millions you want to get once you've retired so that you can live a comfortable life and be okay and not have to worry about anything. And that's how we use various mechanisms, your investments and stuff like that, and then looking at other organizations and their portfolios and put cash into that or save money. And that's how we go about doing it. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Actually, and now I'm just looking at myself, like, I'm thinking if when I started working, I could have sat down with somebody with your expertise and knowledge. There's a lot of things I could have done differently.
It's a culture shock sometimes when you talk to someone and you ask them questions about a future that they have thought about but haven't planned for. It's always a weird thing. So you look at them and you go, I want to get this. And you go, so how are we doing that? And they go, I don't know. It's like, well, so how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
Like, even if you get into a car and decide to want to drive somewhere, you're driving based on, I mean, there are roads and there are signs on the roads and there are toll gates on the way that you're paying to keep the road maintained. It isn't like you're just going to drive and hopefully the road will build itself as you drive. You're driving on already on principle. There's something in the way.
You already know the road is there.
You know where you're going. So why don't we do the same thing with our cash? Why don't you use your money to plot a path for yourself and then walk that path financially? Why does it have to be something that you dream about constantly, having the business that's going to pull this kind of money? And even if you do pull those kind of figures, do you understand things like capital gains tax? Do you understand things like estate duty, that if you die and you move it to a third party, they'll like clap you for quite a lot of tax? There's a lot of things that happen with your cash that you don't really know about and that you take for granted. And it's good to understand your money because until you do, it isn't really your money.
True.
So that's kind of what I do professionally, and that's what I'm learning to do. I haven't been in the industry for that long. It's about, I think, going on a year now. But that's what I try to do for people, especially young guys, and just have them be in control of their cash.
Guy, like, for me, it's like, okay, don't get me wrong, ne? I have. But like, me, before Toli Spani, it was this thing, okay, Toli Spani, you get a car, you get your own place, blah, blah, blah. But like, as far as doing the math and planning and actually seeing Guti, not just right now, but like 5 years from now, this decision that I'm making, because you are going to be living with this decision for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Like, how is it going to impact me in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and all those kind of things?
Yeah.
I saw with a lot of my peers and myself, we fell in the trap of like, tata loans, you buy clothes on credit, you pull out my accounts, because a bank, a garage, you need a credit record in order to work a finance amount and all those kind of things. But we end up doing those things blindly. Yeah,
just doing them because you're told, not understanding what the value of having a credit score is.
Yes.
Because it is important to have a good credit score and why you're doing what you're doing. I think the reason why it's so hard for our race of people to get good at financial planning into the future is because once you do have that job that's going to pay you money and that can afford a car, you almost feel like you've made it. Like there's a little bit of a celebration that comes with having been in a space where you can now make money and rent your own flat and buy your own car. And you don't want to move away from that space too quickly because you know how hard it is for you to get there just being a black person in this country. So there's a lot of, I know I'm not planning for the future because damn it, because damn it, this is the future. The future for me was being 25, having enough money to buy a house and rent, and rent a flat and live the life that I want to live relatively in my youth, right? That is what the future looked like for me. Where for some people, the future looks like, okay, cool, I'll get the job, but I'm getting the job because. Where with us, it's almost like I'm going to varsity because I need to get a job. And I think it's the jumping off points mentally that kind of holds us back a bit when it comes to having discussions about, just like I said, the future and your money with the future and all that stuff. So it does take being in a society where having things isn't how we value you, which unfortunately is not our society. And it also takes a society where wanting to look at the future and being responsible for your future is more important than looking good in the present. And again, we don't have that either. So there's a lot of things kind of working against us young African dudes when it comes to, and women, when it comes to, when it comes to just thinking about the future when it comes to your financing.
Yeah, because I think being a black man, like especially black South African man, there's so many different dynamics.
Yeah.
Because even the families that we come from sort of have an influence on our finances.
Yeah, black tax is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real problem.
Not even in black tax,
Yeah.
right? Like I look at something like marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Marriage for a black man
Yo, like,
is a...
don't get me started on that. You know, there's a couple of good people that I know who are paying off loans for a wedding that happened so long ago that people don't even remember them. And I'm like, man, to be in debt because you needed to make this look like they thought it needed to look like, it's kind of weird. Because they're not helping pay off this loan that you took for this wedding.
The amount of money we spend on weddings here.
Oh man, it's a lot.
For me, it's not a good financial decision.
No, that's because it isn't. It isn't just a for you thing, right? It's just a bad way to handle your financing. Even from what I understand with Caucasians, the father, the bride's father pays for the wedding. Because they have the understanding of, and this is obviously really old and based on when women weren't working, if the guy is going to be the one making the money, why should we use his money to pay for the wedding? Dad, you pay for my husband's wedding and my wedding. Because
now
that isn't the money we're gonna
especially
use.
when you're saying now he's going to assume the responsibility of making sure that there's a roof, there's food.
Why are we taking money
clothes
away from the roof, food, and clothes and putting it into the wedding? Dad, you've got some cash put to the side. Let's use your money. Or maybe use my money for the wedding and then use his money for the roof, food, and clothes. So there's that.
And it doesn't have to be so damn expensive.
It does not have to be that expensive, man. There's this weird dynamic with how we see a man's responsibility close to when we get married or before we get married financially, as opposed to what some Caucasians look at it. And the most painful thing about it is it's setting us back, man. Like racism is an issue, it's a problem, but so is this. Because I'll always put it this way. If you and I are both earning 75,000 Rand a month, right? And by the time I'm 25, you're 25, you and I are both in the same financial situation. We're like this. What do we look like after our weddings? I'm back here now, man. Yeah. And all I did was get married. That's it. Like, I just got married. You're married too. I'm married. But our financial situation is now completely different just because of the expenses placed on that specific ceremony because of my race and my culture, as opposed to you, the white guy who I keep telling everyone I want to catch up to and beat. It's almost like we have a culture of people that want to catch up to and hopefully beat white people economically, but our practices and beliefs don't really point to that reality. We're just hoping something helps make it happen for us. So I've always been confused by that. Like, how am I supposed to make more money than a guy who spends less than me? Ew. Like, I don't... I genuinely don't get it. And maybe someone's going to answer me one day.
And whereas when you talk about the spending, like when we talk about spending, where's that money going to?
Yeah, it's going to them again. Like if we take out a loan at Standard Bank, we don't own Standard Bank, bro.
Yeah.
It's not our facilities, it isn't our banking. And obviously if your money goes to Mpendulo for global or whatever the case might be, that's with them, 100%. But now it's not in this.
But now, like if you say need list ABs, bro. Put my flat screen TV. Flat screen TV, I can't.
Like, who's that for? I didn't know I was renovating. I thought I was... Now I'm the breadwinner? What happened? How did this change? What's going on? What's going on, Dad?
Bro, like, you're absolutely right. Like, our habits.
Yeah.
Not habits.
Our
way of life.
Yeah, our way of life doesn't speak to our outlook.
Yeah.
We're having a completely different conversation to what we want to have happen for us in the country. And again, racism is an issue, and systemic racism is an issue, 100%. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the only reason why we're not really going forward. If you minus it, we still have some of the spending habits that make it hard for us to move forward in the way. So move that out the way, and we might stand a better chance, dude. Yeah. You can't fight Mike Tyson with one hand tied behind your back. At least give yourself a fighting chance against Mike Tyson. Yeah. You want to fight Mike and you're going to knock him out with one hand tied behind my back. You could knock him out with two. At least
you won't even handle his blow. You won't be able to block.
At least give yourself two hands then, man. Don't like walk in there with one hand less than what you could have had and think you're going to win that fight that you wouldn't have won. So that's just, again, just my opinion. That's just how I see it.
Mpendulo, there's so many topics, bro.
Yeah.
They're running in my mind and we don't have much time.
Yeah.
But we're going to try and squeeze in what we can.
Yeah.
I want to talk about podcasting, bro.
Yeah. It's a great thing.
What's your take? Are we now mainly this side?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're comparing to that side.
Of course.
In terms of what's our direction? Are we taking full advantage of what's at hand as far as podcasting is concerned? And what else can we do to make it benefit us? Because once again, with everything that we've seen from obviously the Western side of this globe, we cannot expect to implement it directly as they do there.
Yeah. AdSense is a big one. Like making money per ad, per listener that you get. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, man. Like I wanna give you an answer, and I will, because I have an idea. But for the most part, if I knew, I would be having this conversation in my mansion, right? But I think podcasting, it being new in this country, we still have to get over the hurdle of, and you're doing it very well, by the way, with all of this, is where are the people?
Thanks.
Yeah, the people on YouTube, man.
YouTube.
And how many times have you, maybe before you did the YouTube thing, have someone go, what is that thing that you, is it the radio thing? Like, no. It's different. It's different. I can swear. Like, it's a different thing.
People ask me, it's on their stage.
Yeah. It's like, what's going on, man? So getting people to first understand what podcasting is the challenge. And then getting them to understand how easy it is to access it is another. Because you'll give people like clear cut, like, here you go, here's a link to my podcast, and they'll make it seem like you just gave them like the Da Vinci Code to crack. They'll like, what do I do? Do I hit the thing? And I'm like, do whatever you do for YouTube and you'll get to watch the podcast. So because it's new and people aren't used to it, they sometimes make the mistake of overcomplicating what getting into the experience of podcasting would be like, because they're also kind of getting into this whole YouTubing space. They're just getting into YouTubing now. And so, for the most part, getting people to understand it, getting people to want to find it, getting them to want it, have it work for them, and also being where they are, like also having YouTube channels, is the best way to then get the listeners that you want to get into. And the only way that I can see using that to make money is then start working with organizations to sponsor you. I don't know how else to make money off podcasting as opposed to having someone pay you a bunch of money to plug their product during your podcast. But that takes numbers, and you only get numbers if people know where to find you. There's a saying that goes, if a tree falls in the forest, did it actually fall? Yeah. Which means if people didn't hear the tree falling, it didn't really fall. And if you aren't where people are, then they can't find you. You don't exist. You don't have a podcast. You just have you speaking to a mic by yourself in a room somewhere. So it's just getting to where the people are that I think is the best way to get a hold of your audience. And you're doing that already. So I should be asking you more about how to get into video and whatever the case is, because man, I'm terrified of YouTube.
Why? Why are you terrified?
I don't know, man.
What's so terrifying about it?
For some reason, YouTube seems more permanent than podcasting. I don't know, something about people being able to see the face that made the stupid comment. Oh, so that's what this boy looks like. So
you feel like you're immortalizing it.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes difficult to be anything but that guy who was found saying something that he shouldn't have said in a YouTube clip. Obviously, I don't care about those things too much, but that is a part of it. And just in general, I've never really been able to link up with people like Tiny, who have the facilities to make being on video look good. I'm obsessed with aesthetics. Oh, yeah. So I think that's also been holding me back a bit. And
because, bro, like, if we can get your podcast on YouTube,
I'd love to.
We can.
I'd love to.
The dynamics would be very, very different.
Yeah. I really would enjoy it, and I really would love getting into very hectic conversations, because I'm speaking of the podcast, I'm having one now. It's about the gender-based violence stuff, and it's interesting because I had not a different perspective. I had the normal perspective that guys in our age range and Model C class guys have, which is just listening and wanting to have people give their opinions on stuff, and then doing what we think we need to do to make this thing work. But then I had to ask myself, I did this last time, I'm doing it again this time. What's going to change? So I would love to have those conversations with people where I'm sitting in front of them, and the conversation now goes away from being a philosophical one and a practical one. Because a lot of our discussions are philosophical as hell. And without there being some kind of practical solution to our problems, we aren't really problem solving, we're just problem discussing.
Yeah.
And
which is what we do a lot in SA.
Yeah, we do it all the time. Yeah. If we were a doctor, we would be the greatest like self-diagnosing doctor on the planet who couldn't find any of the medication they needed to fix themselves. We're so good at talking about what's wrong in the country and horrible at doing what we need to fix it. So I don't want to have the same conversation over and over again. And so I want my podcast to be in a space where I can get some kind of feedback from people and push the narrative past where it is right now. Because like I said, on the gender-based violence thing, we're stuck. People don't want to admit it. We're stuck. We don't know what else to do.
You know what I was saying like the other day? I was saying that there are a few things we can go with this. Me now, I'll be honest. As a man, number one, it starts in the conversation. Like the conversation we have as guys about women.
Yeah.
You know, it starts there.
It does. I always say there's two conversations: a conversation between men and men and women. But I think, in my honest opinion, this country is full of people that are dealing with quite a lot and aren't using the facilities given to us to deal with them properly. We're a very anti-psychologist country, full of a bunch of guys with PTSD. You don't go to war, man, and come back home, raise a family, and not have that family, or you be damaged from that war. We just got our freedom, right? Our government is basically run by dudes who've seen some stuff.
Yo.
I don't know how many of them are getting counseling,
bro,
but they're running things.
I'm sure some of obviously, some of the guys who are in parliament right now, who are in cabinet, they were tortured.
Yeah, they were tortured.
By the upper
Zuma
state
spent
government.
10 years in Robben Island, bro. We always forget that part of him. But like it happened, like so many guys were tortured. And for those guys those are just the guys that we know about. Our parents, for example, were like systemically tortured for quite a long time. And to have those people raise a generation of people means that if you don't deal with the parts of the part that makes up their personality now that is based on the torture, then that's now a monster that the child has to fight. I love the saying of, if the dad doesn't kill it, the son has to fight it. And if you don't find a way to kill off all of the issues that have plagued South African men, just mentally, right, then it's going to get hard to have a real conversation about anything. Like, gender-based violence is an issue, but in a country where we drink like crazy, we fight like crazy, we kill each other on a regular anyway, it's something else that's causing us to be as violent as we are being towards women that might be psychological, outside of it just being like an instinctive thing, because I don't think we instinctively want our women, murdered or whatever the case might be, that we need to discuss. I don't know how healthy South African men are. I don't think we are healthy.
Mentally. I don't think we are.
Mentally. You saw what happened when they killed off the ban on booze, right?
Yeah.
We lost our minds. Like, people started dying the next day. There were accidents again. And if you treated us as though we were a normal person, we would be in rehab right now for alcohol abuse.
Yes.
We'd be in an AA meeting with a bunch of other countries like Ireland in them. But we're not, because we're a collective of people. And we think we've got this alcohol thing locked down, but we don't. So all of the symptoms of someone with PTSD, not all of them, but some of them, right? Abusing alcohol, all those kinds of things. Being
alcohol abuse is a
alcohol
huge
abuse, being aggressive, being violent, being quick to lash out. All of these things are a cataclysm of what the people in the country are going through. But we don't seem to think that then it means we're dealing with the PTSD, or that we're dealing with some kind of a mental block. We're showing all the symptoms of a mental block, but aren't really talking about it as though it's a mental block. It's just how we are. It's just fun. December 1st, we throw it open. That's just who we are.
And for me, it's worrying when even our leaders, it's like no one is picking up all of this. Like, no one is paying attention to these things.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah.
It's something that everybody's shy to deal with. Even if they talk about it, it's like you didn't say anything.
Yeah, a lot of nothing. Much ado about nothing was just said. Yeah, it's a sensitive conversation, where men have to first look at their own masculinity and go, is this version of masculinity what helps make the country better, or does it make the country worse and make me feel good about myself? And I think until we have that conversation, we're gonna have a lot of guys virtue signaling for the gender-based violence discussion and debate, while still harboring some of the more toxic parts within them that make it easy for this kind of behavior to be prevalent. And we need to weed out that kind of thinking and that kind of belief structure within ourselves, because it's really killing us as men, and it's making it hard for men to just live a normal and healthy, happy life. In this country, human beings go through an array of emotions, and human beings go through those emotions and express them in different ways. Some will cry, Some people will be gleeful. Some people will be happy. Some people will be angry. Which one of these four do you think South African men aren't allowed to experience? You can't cry.
Yeah.
So that means whenever something is horrible enough where a cry would be necessary, what do? We get angry.
Get angry.
When we're happy,
Lash out.
even our anger, even our happiness has a certain level of
It's
aggression
limited.
towards it. It's limited. We are funneling all of these emotions into one tube, which is anger. And so it means a lot of the time when we're reacting to things, we're reacting based on the one tube in which we're allowing ourselves to react, which is anger, because anything else is seen as being overly feminine. You're not really being a man if you're out here crying because you had a tough day at work or whatever the case might be. But if you're mad at your boss and want to take them out, yeah, you're showing your strength. You're standing for yourself. So there's that. That's also making it hard for people to deal with this stuff. And again, it's all psychological. So I'm waiting for that conversation, not the one of which is important, the stop killing us conversation, because that's 100% accurate. We do need to start looking at that.
Killing is not killing of another human being, period.
Yeah, it's insane, right?
It's insane.
And all the crimes that take place within this whole gender-based violence discussion are extremely problematic. But I don't want to figure out a way to deal with the cough. I want to cure the flu. And I don't know how far we are to having a conversation to going, what is it that you have that's causing all of the symptoms we're seeing? Right? People don't see people coughing and you just go, he has a cough. These days, if you cough, they go, COVID. We're quicker to diagnose each other with COVID than we are to diagnose South African men with PTSD or some kind of mental block. Because we know if someone coughs amongst us when we go COVID, we're trying to deal with the ultimate issue at hand. Do the same thing with men in this country, and you might be better off and be with a more stable kind of man in this country. Don't do it, and we have the same conversation again in 6 months, and in 6 months again, and another 6 months, and another 6 months, until we get tired of having it and we just give up. And I don't want that to happen. Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
Because it feels like we're stuck in a loop.
Yeah, we are. It's a loop, man. You know, I always say, if you live in your house or whatever the case might be, and cockroaches come out at night or whatever, what happens when you turn on the lights? What happens when you turn them back off again?
And come back.
That's all this is. You can't be you can't put attention to something in one moment and expect to find more people doing it excessively in that certain space and time. There's going to be a lot of abusers out there pretending to be allies, and in the moment the attention goes away, they go back to being abusers. Let's deal with what makes them think that that's okay, and then hopefully we don't have to deal with the consequence of them having done it in the first place. But again, just my opinion. That's just
No, these are great opinions, bro. There's so many issues that we have as a country.
Yeah.
That need solutions.
Yeah.
I propose to you our unemployment rate, especially amongst us, the youth. Obviously, government doesn't seem to be doing anything.
Yeah.
That's
still a
going to resolve
the unemployment issue. Yeah.
this, going forward. What do we do? Because we still live here and we need a way to go forward.
This is one of my more hard to stomach opinions. It's all about varsity. It's all about university. I don't know how to put this. The structures in which one walks into to make money and the structures that educate you in making money have to link up. University has to link directly with the private sector and the market. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. If you teach yourself how to fix a door in a land full of people using those curtain, what are those curtain, when you just walk into a door and it's like a curtain waiver or whatever the case might be.
The blinds.
Blinds? Using blinds, right?
Yeah.
If you teach yourself to fix a door in a country full of people who use blinds, who's going to hire you?
Everyone.
No, you hope it would be everyone, right? But I mean, you're a door fixer, but no one's got doors.
Yeah.
No one's gonna hire you. You've educated yourself in solving a problem that no one has right now. We're good, man. We've got it. We've got too many of those. We don't really have that kind of a problem. So what they do in Germany is they look at the private sector and go, okay, we need about 400 engineers. We have a shortage. Increase the number of students who will be able to get an engineering degree, and then decrease it for those jobs that we think are stagnant and have too many people congesting it. So that the university and the private sector are working in conjunction. And it isn't like, hey man, get a degree and figure it out, which is what happens.
Which is what we're doing.
Exactly, which is what happens in this country. I think the moment there's a relationship between the two, you will then see the result of having that relationship between the two. Right now, it's just it's a guessing game.
Can I tell you something? You know, at work, I've said and I look at the way obviously people with my qualification function, and I'm like, yo, if I had the powers, I would employ more people with my skill and knowledge, or try and get more students getting jobs. But what I can say is within my field, there's not really that much big of a shortage in terms of jobs.
Okay.
Now that you're mentioning this method that you just mentioned, I'm like, this is where that would work.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. So I have a course like mine where I'd say that's and I'm like, I'm a clinical technologist. It's like, oh, okay, wow, because they hear clinical and technologist,
and they go these big like, words, many syllables. You're killing
yeah. But that's not important for me. It's like people here, like we all want to go to the same direction.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to think differently.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to sit down and look, where can I be useful? Where can I be what I want to be? Or where can I go in order to get to where I want to get? And there's not much of that happening. So constantly you find people going towards the same thing and ending up with the same results.
Yeah, exactly, which is unemployment.
Yeah.
And that's because we don't need you right now, man. Like we wish we had space for you, but we don't have space for you. It would have been good if you checked before you got the degree. If you were going to be important after you had the degree, right? And that's, I think, the ultimate downfall in our economic structure is that link. Obviously, there's more things that are causing this issue. I mean, and the way I came about this was just talking to my brother again. We were going, more people have degrees than ever, but unemployment isn't going down. So people screaming education is the problem. I don't know, man.
It's not the
more
problem.
People are getting degrees. The problem is what happens after they get the degree. And I think that's that last bit. What happens is when you're black, and something I spoke to my brother again about is, you fight for so long and so excessively for basic things that you start to think that is the main fight. So black people, we fight for education because that's the part that's hardest for us to get to, and not fight for the economic structure that will then make that education worth having had it. So we end up fighting like crazy for things that should matter, but don't, because we aren't really looking at the space in which they'd be useful, and that kills us. Like, again, prime example, the difference between equality and equity for black people. If I'm standing we're doing 100-meter race, I'm standing at the 1 meter line, and a white guy standing at the 50-meter line. What I think equality looks like is getting to the 50-meter line. That's progress, right? Going from 1 to 50 is progress for me. Do you think he's not going to want to get to 100? Of course he is.
Of course.
So by the time it's 2037 and I'm finally at the 50, guess where he's going to be? At the 100. There was no progress. We really didn't make any progress in shortening or at least shrinking the wealth gap. I just now am a different version of... I'm in a different space, but ultimately as far away as I used to be, because they convinced us that the fight for equality is more important than the fight for equity. Fight for equity, you'll pass this level right quick. If you're looking to be what they want to be, or looking at your life like this is where I'm ultimately trying to go, and you look past them, you're going to move past them. And that makes it so much easier for you to progress in your life. And like I said, it happens with education too. We're still fighting for people just to get an education. So education becomes the main fight, but the main fight should be what happens after you get the education, because
otherwise we already have the education.
The education is here, and we need to work on it. We need to work for it. We need to expand it and have more people have access to it. It is a real problem, but we're so focused on that, and we should be, that we've completely negated why we're going to school in the first place. Because why do you go to school if not to contribute to the economy of the country in which you live in? If that economy doesn't need you, then what do you do?
Yeah, you become redundant.
And I think, but yeah, that's at least, again, my take on education. obviously there's a much deeper conversation to have about it, but I don't want to take up too much time. Just what I thought, from.
I want to throw in another one before we close this off.
Like I'm juggling. It's like I'm just juggling 3 balls and I go 4, 5, 6.
But okay, I'll save it for another.
Okay.
I'll save it for another episode.
Sure.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks,
finally on the.
Yeah,
on
I've
the
been trying to
podcast.
get on. I really admire what you do.
Bro, I admire what you do. When I hear what you're doing, it's like, hey, yeah, nah, this nigga makes me sweat. But I say, nah. Let's compete.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's so good to see other people from here who I can consider to be good at this.
Thanks, man. I consider you to be the pinnacle of what it looks like to make Durban worth staying in. A lot of Joburg. Let's go to Joburg and get it done there.
Yeah.
Make Joburg, make Durban Joburg.
KZN is there's a lot.
There's a lot, man.
There's a lot.
There's a lot going on in this in KZN that we aren't really exploring that excessively. And now that we've got guys like you that are working extremely hard to give a certain quality of presentation that even some guys in Joburg and Cape Town aren't giving. People look at KZN not as a place to want to walk away from, but maybe want to work in. And that's dope. So I love being here, man. Hopefully you can invite me again soon.
No, bro, you don't worry. We'll always need your opinions here.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you... I'd like to share them.
As long as I'm still here, you'll keep coming back.
Thank you.
This is the first of many.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
And if there's anything you want to say in closing?
I don't know. Which camera?
There's your camera.
Yeah, there's my camera. Okay. Just to anyone that's listening, there's 2 things. Don't let people convince you that doing things your way is the same as doing them the way they should be done. You can't throw a ball in the sky and write legislation for it not to fall down. It's going to fall down. It's gravity, right? You can't fight against those things. And be very mindful of people that use the truth to deceive, because it's a very good tool to deceive people. The truth is important, yes, but how that truth is being delivered is more important than what the truth is. And just continue to work hard. And please share, and subscribe to the homies channel. And hopefully I'll see you again next time. And I'll have more energy.
And Spotify,
yes,
Apple Podcasts.
Yes, you can.
Go find this podcast.
Find my podcast. Good Morning, Bro. Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor, which is the guys that host it. Google Play or the Google Podcast app, or anywhere you guys want to find us. And hopefully you guys can take part in the conversations more. And I just want to hear your opinions on things, because again, I'm just some guy sitting in a room by myself if no one's listening and no one's speaking to me. So
Instagram handles and.
Oh, it's Mpendulo _Tembe. I'm very simple. This is my name and my surname. It's my government.
Thank you for tuning in again.
Sure.
We appreciate you, all the returning subscribers, new subscribers. Siyabonga kakhulu. And ungakhohlwa ukwenza leyo nto la ikhoneni. And shout out to my boy Tiny at tinyfilms _ behind the camera. Shout out to Prixma_Pricado _ on the sound. You know what it is. Catch us next time.